All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to stealthyhunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
You're listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is James Payne.
I'm Dalton Gray.
I'm Mariah Humphreys.
And welcome to our first ever Thursday release. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be continuing the conversation about moose hunting. If you haven't listened to episode 44, which released on Monday, definitely go back and give that a listen. That'll kind of give you the introduction to what we're talking about here. We're going to jump in a little bit in the middle, but let us know what you think of this new style. If you enjoy it, if you find it easier to listen to, you can reach us at The Northern Hunter. If you search that on either Facebook or Instagram, reach us there. We have an email, info@thenorthernhunter.com. Or if you go to thenorthernhunter.com, we have a nice contact button there that you can reach out to us. Just put a little bit of info in there and we'll get to us, or it'll get to us. If you'd like to support what we're doing, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to the podcast, like the show, share it with your friends, leave us a review. That really helps us reach more people and get our information out to the people that need it the most. Share it with your friends if you know somebody that could use information. And if you would like to help us financially, we have a nice shop page and a partners page on the website. The shop has hats, hoodies, t-shirts. We're all wearing them here. They look pretty sharp, so go get you one of those. And if you want to help us while you're on your adventure,
While you're on your hunt, protect your rifle and your scope with a rifle cover from Stealthy Hunter with Ryan Lampers. We have several existing sponsors at the time of this show. They include Stealthy Hunter, Weatherby Rifles, Yukon River Knives, Batum 907, Hammer Bullets, and 60-inch Club with Troy Sessions. Now, with four of these partnerships, we have the same discount code. The Northern Hunter, no caps, no space, in the promo code box at checkout. That'll get you a significant discount off of Hammer Bullets, 60-inch Club game bags and raft rentals and hunt planners and things of that nature. The Yukon River Knives, the Hunter, the small game, the ATK rifle sling/knife combo, and the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover, glassing pads, and all the supplements that go along with that company as well. That discount code applies to all four of those companies, the Northern Hunter, at checkout, and you'll get a discount code there that'll directly help us keep doing what we're doing. And Batum 907 has a discount code from us as well. That is TNHP in the checkout promo code box. And that is all of our local Alaska bear attractants and lures, also trapping lures and moose lures, legal for use in Alaska. And last but not least, Weatherby Rifles in Sheridan, Wyoming. If you buy a Weatherby rifle, we just ask that you let them know that we sent you.
absolutely. Yep. And again, all of these sponsors help bring great gear to hunters for the process of hunting. They're run by great people. It helps them. It helps us if you shop from them. And we really appreciate all the support we can get. So continuing the topic of moose hunting, we touched on it a little bit in the last episode. You guys told some stories about your weekend. For anybody wondering, we're recording this in the middle of the first week of September. And so how'd you guys' opening weekend go?
Well, no dead moose.
No dead moose. That's pretty safe to assume if anybody heard episode 44.
Yeah. If we would have killed a moose, we would have been talking about it, I'm sure.
Right.
And groaning in pain, possibly.
Yeah, lots of
depending on if we could have gotten a winch to it.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
Definitely some snotty weather to open up the season.
Man,
though.
it was a wet weekend.
Like especially for the interior, it's not that normal where I've hunted in the unit where I was to have high winds.
Mhm.
And by high winds, I don't mean 50, 60 mile an hour winds. I mean anything above 10 miles an hour is
Mhm.
considered wind, right?
Yeah.
Some areas of the state, that's just a average Monday morning breeze.
Right.
But out where I was moose hunting and where Mariah was moose hunting,
Yes.
now where Mo was camped, he was a little more advantageous position for the wind.
Mhm.
He didn't experience the wind like I was up at my camp. But where I was, I mean, it was blowing 20, 25 miles an hour at times. Pretty well sustained 15 to 20 mile an hour winds and just blasting rain
Yeah.
and fog every single morning. It seemed like it was pretty low visibility in the early mornings, which is, kind of not ideal for hunting conditions. But you know what? We saw some moose. They were, somewhat responsive to some calling. They're able to get a few of them to move out and kind of present themselves, but not quite for a good opportunity.
Yep.
But some bulls moving, lots of cows moving around. So hopefully here the next weekend we can put something together as the weather cools off and before we move on to other things.
Yep.
So-
yeah. Later in the season's always gets hotter.
Second half
or
of
not-
moose
or
season.
hotter
Yeah,
action.
Yeah,
not-
hotter
cooler
action,
weather,
yeah.
hotter action. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has cooled down here the last couple of days down into the upper 30s.
Mhm.
It's getting there.
Yep. It is. What about you, Mo?
I
What'd you do
say,
opening weekend?
I went out, like I said, was camped a few miles from where Dalton was,
Mm-hmm.
in a lower area, more of a valley,
Yeah.
colder, which is usually good for the moose. And the coldest night, I had a lot of action. I think I said in the last episode that I had a cow like 10 feet from me.
Yeah.
I saw another one, and it was a really tight, thick area. Had several more.
Mhm.
It may have been a bull, may not have been.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you can't see the antlers.
Right.
Anyhow, one night of real good action, and there was a few other times I thought maybe I heard a moose moving, but like I said, it was really thick, and it just was, it was a new area for me.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was just learning the area. But no, I obviously didn't get anything, or else I would have definitely let you know.
But the important thing is you're out there and trying. I mean, you always got a better chance of shooting moose out there than you do on your couch, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I might catch a little bit of flack for this one, but I didn't actually hunt moose that hard during opener weekend.
Mm.
I was out there in the woods. I was pursuing game, but I wasn't focusing solely on moose. I was out with one of our good buddies here at the show, and we were camped out in a lower valley area, so we didn't have that much of an issue with the wind. The wind wasn't ripping through there as bad as the higher areas were. The rain, though, oh my goodness, it's been just a wet, like, what has it been now? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Just rain, and then a little moment of sunshine, maybe one sunshiny day, but just rain nonstop. It's been such a wet August, wet into September.
Yes,
everything's drenched, everything's soaked.
Yep.
So definitely dealt with a lot of that in the lowlands. We were looking more for grizzlies than we were moose. We were seeing what we could spot up, and also looking, scouting around for maybe some areas for the springtime or something like that. Seeing what we could kind of organize for the next season. But you're out there in the woods anyways. Might run into a moose. Who knows?
Absolutely.
So we dedicated a lot of time to that in the earlier part of the weekend. I did stop and decide to make a sit. I think that was Monday night, actually. No, that was Sunday night. Sunday night, we decided to make a sit. We were out there anyways. Didn't have much else to do, and I was like, moose opened up. So me and my wife went out and we found a nice spot to sit where we had some visibility, nice cut, and we went out and did some calling. Sat there till dark. We didn't see any moose in that area, but we did hear them. And it was so close to dark by the time we started hearing. There was a bull off in the distance that just hadn't exposed himself. And we started hearing him right around the time it was getting too dark to shoot, especially at the ranges we were going to be shooting at. And there just wasn't going to be time to call him in. So we sat there as long as we could, but it just got too dark to shoot. So, but so still had a great weekend getting out there, doing some scouting, looking for all kinds of critters. So, I don't know. I thought it was a blast. And like you said, we all got plenty of plans. We're all got stuff going on later in the season. We'll be talking about, it'll be exciting stuff. Yeah. One way or another.
Yeah.
So
moose season is far too short.
It really
far
is
too short.
I don't know why necessarily. It changes so much depending on where you're at in the state. I mean, some areas, starts earlier, which isn't always the best time to be out there looking for moose, but in some areas it closes the 15th, some areas it's the 30th, some areas, and it's so weird. Yeah. I don't know. We'll figure it out at some point. Bring somebody on the show that knows why.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we do. I think it's just over 2 weeks here locally.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 1st to the 15th. Yeah. So.
Well, it used to be a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, for residents, it was the 20th, right?
Yeah, it was. I remember that.
I remember the year they changed that and not even realizing it till mid-moose season or towards the end. And somebody told me that and I was like, really? That's why you should check the regs every year.
That's true. Yeah. No, every year there's new proposals and new changes that are being made.
The theory that I heard about that was that the old biologist for this unit that we live in had a bunch of cow hunting that went on. A lot of antlerless moose tags.
There was. I remember that.
So many people talk about that and they use it as an excuse as why they don't moose hunt anymore. And they say, man, there's just no moose left, and moose, it's just never been the same.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Okay. Now that
is true. However,
it would have changed regardless of whether or not the cow hunting happened. Would it have changed as drastically? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time.
What it does when you hunt cows like that is it'll not only change the populations, but it'll also change where the bulls go.
Right.
Because if you knock out all the cows in one area, then they're not going to go look for cows there. So a lot of
I'm not
spots,
arguing with that.
Yeah.
But the thing that kind of that kind of sticks in my craw about it, I guess if you could say it that way.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
The thing that I find hard to believe is that people have no problem blaming hunt opportunities on somebody else and outside forces, but yet they don't put any more effort into moose hunting than they did 15, 20 years ago. You can't expect it to always stay the same.
Yeah.
Part of being a good hunter is adapting to your situations.
That's very true.
Into adapting populations and
different
to
weather conditions.
Yes.
Different,
weather patterns have changed over the years. There's no denying that. I'm not on the whole global warming train, but climate change does not mean that it's global warming.
Right.
Climate change has been happening since the existence of this planet.
Right.
Ice ages and so on and so forth. No matter what you believe about that, climate change is undeniable.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can control it is a whole different political scandal.
Yeah.
But my point, I really got off track here.
Off the deep end.
Reel her in.
The Northern Hunter Podcast 2024 for presidential bid. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
What have I gotten us into? Anyway, my point of that is I don't think it's right for folks to pass off poor hunting on something that happened 10 years ago or more, right? Populations have rebounded to what they're going to be. It's time to change tactics, time to find new spots. But I was told, and this is where I was told that this season shortening came from.
Okay.
Was due to the effects that the immediate years ongoing after those cow hunts were ended, that people noticed a decreased population. Then we had some tough winters.
Yeah.
And so the idea was we'll shorten moose season by a week. And that way we'll give the moose a little more of a break. We're not going to allow as much hunting into the rut as we used to.
Okay, gotcha.
So we'll give them a real good chance to rebound. Well, and like most things, once you shorten up a season or take away access, really hard to get it back.
Yeah.
Even if you do it for pure reasons,
Mhm.
which I don't think that it's a bad idea,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and you know what? That could be totally off.
Yeah.
That might not even be why they did that. They might have said, look, 20B has so many hunters in it now that we don't have the moose to support it if every hunter with a tag shoots a moose.
Especially
as
if
the
you kill 'em all.
populations of these
So
towns
we
gets-
have
grows
to-
and everything.
So we have to adjust the season length for the population density in this unit because 20B has a lot of folks living in
Oh, it does, yeah.
Between all the military bases and all the locals
Mhm.
and folks that drive up from other areas,
Yep.
possibly to hunt in 20B.
Yeah.
So there are other factors at play, but that was one way that I heard it explained was from those old cow hunts. Population waned a little bit. You know, the city has grown immensely. You know, North Pole and Eielson and Fort Wainwright have boomed,
Right.
and that's all fine and well. That's just part of life.
Yeah.
Now we have this 6-lane intersection. You know, we're practically a big city now. Which now there's been what 4 or 5 traffic accidents there in the last month.
I haven't been
Has there
keeping
really?
track.
There was one there last night.
Really?
Oh yeah. And traffic is still backed up a quarter mile.
I'm just gonna come bring this out since we have listeners in Fairbanks.
Overpass.
I should have done an overpass
Whoa.
because they're gonna have to pay for it eventually anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they settled and didn't spend the extra $20 million on an overpass or something like that. That was
Well,
the price difference.
It's because they're doing it on the railroad tracks.
Oh, that's been in the books for like 5 or 6 years.
They're doing an overpass by Seekins. Johansson
Yeah, I
and
heard about
Stees.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's like a couple of years down the road.
Oh.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and they're talking about doing something up there on where Johansson runs into. Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah.
That
Right
one.
there by
Yeah.
Seekins.
Yeah, that
Right,
one.
yeah.
I was like way off on.
This is just local
Dude,
news
Okay.
for all of our
that's
listeners.
gonna
here.
that's gonna redirect some traffic there.
Back
Oh,
to
yeah,
the new
There's
intersection.
a lot of traffic that goes
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
Back to the new intersection.
Yes.
I have done my best to be as positive about it as I can
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's so negative about it. And my personal experience has been, it has been much quicker every time
Yeah.
I've been through.
Yeah.
it.
Me too, but I haven't been through there at 5 o'clock.
So
I have been.
yeah,
And-
I've
and
been
it's
through
like-
there. Yeah.
you?
It's like
So the good thing they did is they redirected traffic to different areas.
Yeah.
So you don't have people
Right.
waiting to make a right-hand
Right.
turn in the same
It's
lane as people going
50%
straight.
flow instead of 25% flow.
Well, yeah, and what it so it's good in that aspect. What I don't like is that there's now 6 lights at one intersection.
And those turns going around those elbows are way too sharp for icy
See, I haven't
roads.
driven those ones.
And the
Yeah.
and the knucklehead drivers that don't have good tires or that don't know how
Well,
to drive slowly,
that's
they
the thing.
are going to run into
So-
people on
because
those
they
corners.
put this intersection in front Wainwright,
Which had
which is
brand
gonna
new
have
people every
all
year.
the new drivers that don't know how to drive in snow are going to
Yeah.
drive first intersection they hit.
It's trial by
Yeah.
fire.
Luckily, they sell Blizzaks on base. So,
well, there you go.
yeah.
Blizzak
But, and
up.
for anybody outside of Fairbanks that's wondering, they just redid this huge intersection right in front of the military base. It's one of the biggest intersections in the city, and it's caused some. It's entertaining if
Local
you go to any
backlash.
if you go to any Fairbanks Facebook pages or anything, you'll be able to see pictures and diagrams of it, and it's I'm sure to people in big cities it doesn't look
Yeah.
silly,
Yeah.
but like to us, it looks very interesting.
It's a big enough deal that when I go through a coffee stand,
Mm-hmm.
their little the little sleeves on the coffee cups have an intersection diagram and know how to drive through the intersection.
Oh, really?
Little breakdown of the map. The drivers in this town did not know what to expect. So the city put out all these little coffee
Yeah.
cup sleeves so
I
that
think they did
all
that.
the people, all the folks driving to the coffee stands
So,
would get an idea of
Look
what
at
they're
your
about to
coffee
go
cup
into.
while you're about to.
I think they did that because
You know-
of the backlash.
There's
Yeah.
some big city listeners right now. They're laughing at all of us
Oh, yeah.
Alaskan
Like I
hillbillies
said,
right
I've-
now.
I've done my
don't know
best
how to use
to
intersections.
be positive and be like, you know what? This
Sure.
if people pay attention to the signage,
Yes.
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
then it will work phenomenally.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if they drive slowly in the wintertime.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that really goes for any intersection in this town.
And anyway, to circle this back to Moose.
How did we get off on that?
Oh, it's late.
It kind of looks like
so-
a moose antler if you think about it.
It kind of does actually, but no, there's a lot of mixed feelings about the cow hunting that went on,
Yes.
and how it affected the populations and things like that, and what it did to the seasons and to the local population, especially considering the last several winters we've had
Yeah.
have been pretty rough. I mean, when we had that rain in the middle of winter,
Yeah.
and that just made that
Mhm.
ice
Yeah.
sheet across all the snow, I mean,
Yep.
that really
Yes.
hurt the moose population
Yes.
alone.
Took a big toll.
Which is something to, like you had said, it's really easy for people to look around and point blame.
Yes.
And they do that with moose, they do that with sheep, they do that with caribou.
And it
they do
might
that
have
with everything.
nothing to do with that biologist's decision for those cow hunts.
Well, in cow hunting, or any kind of antlerless hunting like that. Well, I guess you can't really call it antlerless if it's a cow caribou. But the taking of cows and does is not a rare or unheard of concept.
Mhm.
It's a little bit more particular with moose because they're fewer in numbers. They're fewer and farther between. They're not as numerous as, say, caribou or whitetail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it is a practice that happens. It's something that's done to control populations going forward. When they authorize cow hunts, they're counting into effect the calves that they would have had, in the line, and looking at the future of the population and figuring out how to do it. It's their full-time job. I don't think they get everything right. Obviously, they're human. They make mistakes. But I think the people who do it as a full-time job probably have a little bit better insight than I do, or really,
Yeah.
people that that are looking at it from the outside. But yeah, and in other parts of the state, in a lot of areas, you do have a much longer season. You've got till
Mhm.
the 25th in some areas, till the 30th in other areas. I believe Fairbanks, you are allowed to hunt moose till the 30th with bow
With bow in the management.
In the
in the
management
management
area,
area. Yep.
And-
So
There's also a week season at Thanksgiving.
right,
same.
yeah, for the same thing. Yep. So I mean, there is still opportunity. I mean, 2 weeks isn't as long as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
But there is still definitely opportunity out there to be had.
Yes.
And we talked a lot about how to address that opportunity in Monday's episode, and we're just kind of going to continue that in this one here. One thing I really wanted to drive home that we talked about in the last episode that I feel we should touch on just a little bit more is the respect factor you guys
Yes.
talked about.
Yep.
That is probably by far the biggest issue people run into when they're hunting closer to town, especially, when you're not able to get as far out. Maybe you have restrictions due to work or restrictions due to just about anything that could keep you close to town. Understand there's going to be pressure. There's going to be other people there.
Yeah.
And having respect for them is a big factor to making sure everybody enjoys hunting, everybody's successful.
Yeah.
We've talked on the show before about just the general attitude of respect that you should have in the woods, whether that's for bear baiting and not setting up right on top of somebody, or for moose hunting, like you guys said, you came over the hill, noticed somebody there, backed out immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, I have had a very opposite experience many, many times.
Yes.
Even just last year, I was out in an area that, has some pressure, but it was just a weeknight. I was just still hunting an area just to do it. And me and my wife were out there, and we ride our wheelers out there. It's several miles from the highway. We're heading out to this open area that we know, and there is a wheeler trail there, but like good hunters, we parked our wheeler far enough away that the moose weren't going to hear it and spook, and we're walking our way in slowly, still hunting our way in, which is a viable option. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked a lot in the last episode about sitting and calling and stuff like that, but you can still hunt for moose,
Yes.
and just walk very slowly, like you guys said, very, very slow movements. You're not running, you're not walking
Yeah.
full speed.
Yeah.
You're just
being quiet.
very aware. You're always looking around. You're walking, being careful of what you step on, not
Yeah.
snapping twigs and things
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
And really sneak into an area, especially if you know where the wind's going. You can get in there, and they might not even know you're there. And we had walked several hundred yards at this point down this trail, and all of a sudden I hear,
Not a cow call.
not a cow call. That's a wheeler call. And I hear it coming, and I'm like, no big deal. They'll see my wheeler parked on the side of the trail, aimed down the trail, and obviously assume somebody's down here, right?
Uh-huh.
That's what the reasonable thing would do.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. This guy rode all the way down the trail, came up right past us. I'm waving at him. I'm trying to get him to stop. Took a slight detour around us and hopped right back on the trail and just kept going right towards the area we were heading towards.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the level of disappointment in your fellow hunters when that happens. You know, I mean, it's just, why would you? You know, that's what I don't understand. I've gone to a lot of areas near town. Like I said, on weeknights, I'd rather be out in the woods, even if I can't get away. But, you know, you can still get out for the last couple hours of daylight.
Right.
Find an area to go sit, find an area to go still hunt, something like that. Might as well make the effort.
Yep.
But when you're near town, you're going to see other trucks. You're going to see people's tents. You're going to see other sign. You know, some people will just put signs, literally signs, with writing on them saying that they're hunting in this area. Respect that.
Yes.
Don't get upset. Don't get mad that somebody else found your spot before you did.
Right.
If they got there first, guess what? It's not going to help you. You're not going to go in there and push them out of there and then shoot a moose in an an hour.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
If you go in there and start a confrontation, that's going to be it for the night.
Oh.
And so
It's a stupid thing to do.
it is a stupid thing to do. And I think having that respect for each other is a huge thing when you're hunting near town and even out of town. You know, I mean, like we said before, if there's a wheeler trail there, anybody can get there.
Mm.
Somebody's got a bigger wheeler than you. They're a better rider than you. If you can get there, somebody else can get there. So, but you know, and it's just one of those things. Just have respect for each other. I just want to harp on that just a hair more.
With that, I don't know if we have any non-hunters that listen to this podcast.
Probably not.
But for those who are, spread to your joyriding friends a little bit of information that when it's moose season, have some respect for the areas you see hunting camps. This past weekend,
yes,
I was down in the bottom. The trail to the bottom is a hard to find trail on purpose. But a couple guys found it and rode down in there. And in the middle of the afternoon one day, you know, and I've mentioned how I did my best to keep everything quiet and I only rode the in and then the next afternoon, but not since then. I was really quiet and all that kind of stuff. These guys came into the bottom. Now, they didn't ride up to my camp, but they had to ride right past the camp that was up on the hill, right? And other places that you could obviously see there's other hunters hunting other areas back in there, right?
Sure, yeah.
And they ripped around the bottom, tore trails to pieces that we work hard to ride slow on and around to keep them from not getting torn up and ripping the tundra up and all that kind of stuff, right? Because when I came out, these trails were torn to pieces. And I was thinking, like, really?
Yeah.
Dalton, you guys rode down there and you did this? Like, it didn't make sense to me, but they're the only ones I knew of that even would have ridden that trail because I knew they came down, but I didn't hear their wheelers because they rode quiet.
Right.
But that afternoon, I hear ripping all over the place. I hear them head down the trail towards where I was, and they turned around at some point because they realized, hey, this isn't a fun trail to ride. I'm getting slapped in the face with branches.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but it just, if you are a joyrider, I do that too. When it's not hunting season, right? When I'm not scouting, I'll get out places. I'll jump on the pipeline and rip up and down it for some fun. You know, whatever. That's a good way to test my wheeler. It's to where I live. I'll jump on the pipeline and rip up and down it to make sure everything feels right before I head out.
Jump on the pipeline road.
Correct.
Yeah. Correct. for people that have no idea.
No, we use a pipeline like a race, like one of those slot car tracks.
Yeah, you just got to balance on top of it.
Yeah. Right. Jump on the pipeline road. Hit the. Yeah, it just middle of hunting season. I don't care what time of day it is. Don't go ripping out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And no, but it is important. To, I mean, we're all very American here. We all love freedom, and you're allowed to do whatever you want. We're simply saying respecting each other out there makes it so much better for everybody. It's land that is available for everyone to access.
Let's further this a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's flesh this out, okay? Moose hunting is not just a for funsies thing.
Right.
As some people
wait.
Would call
Are you saying
some hunting.
That I did not spend 4 days almost wet almost the whole time for fun?
Yes. I'm definitely saying that.
Really?
Because I know you better than that.
Interesting.
Moose hunting is not even arguably, it's not even close that moose hunting for residents of Alaska I would probably estimate over 80% of moose hunting is conducted for the purpose of filling the freezer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably even a
Absolutely.
higher percentage than that. There are a lot of people in this state that work, blue collar 9-to-5 jobs in the trades
Mm-hmm.
that love to hunt. They love the outdoors. They'll go out fishing on 4th of July weekend. Maybe they'll go to Chitina over a weekend to try to catch some fish in some dip netting operations. But their main hunt for red meat
Mm-hmm.
in the fall is moose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And these people, ourselves included, rely on killing a moose to fill that freezer.
Right.
There are individuals out there with families with multiple kids
Mm-hmm.
that rely on killing a moose
Yeah.
to fill their freezer for the winter to get them through till next season. And if they don't kill a moose and they run out of game meat, then they're going to the grocery store
Right.
and buying meat and adding expenses to an already high cost of living state. And it ain't getting any cheaper.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, exactly. So just to give some emphasis there to folks, don't just think, that these backwoods hick rednecks are just out
Mhm.
here moose hunting and they think they're Rambo out here with their 4-wheelers and their rifles. And because some people that don't hunt moose don't understand the gravity
Yeah.
of what a moose provides
Mm-hmm.
for a household
Absolutely.
and to friends and family that it gets distributed
to the
amongst.
community. Yeah.
Exactly, to your community. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Be respectful. A good illustration, like Mariah said, if you see somebody, especially if you see somebody with your own eyes moose hunting,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
even if you are moose hunting, leave.
Yeah.
Do not approach. Turn around, walk out, or ride out and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of public land up here.
Yeah.
There's more public land in Alaska, percentage-wise, than anywhere else in the country. You have other places you can go.
Mm-hmm.
Find somewhere else to go.
Yep.
Okay? A good illustration. A close friend of mine was out moose hunting over opening weekend. He wasn't that far out of town, and he relayed this story to me, and I was stunned.
Mm-hmm.
He was hunting over a lake on opening morning. And as the sun came up, he noticed that across the lake, a couple of fellas dressed in camo, carrying guns, obviously hunting,
Mm-hmm.
came walking around the lake. Now, this friend of mine was underneath the tarp. It was pouring rain. We mentioned the weather was bad,
Yeah.
right? Well, he was pretty well tucked back into the trees. He wasn't really in sight. He could see the whole area, but he wasn't out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys walked around the edge of the lake, came around to where he was, and sat down about 75 yards away. Really had no idea he was there.
Right.
So he said, I got up, walked over to him, introduced myself. I'm being quiet. And the one guy just pipes up. The one guy just nodded his head and, hey, good morning. The other guy, hey, seen any moose? Just kind of in that tone. Well, of course, my friend was, shh, yeah, no, I haven't seen anything yet. I'm just out here this first morning,
Right. Yeah.
just looking like you are. He said, well, I'm camped right over here back in the trees a little ways. I got in here yesterday to set up.
Mm-hmm.
And these two guys said, oh, yeah, no, we have a couple of friends coming. We're just going to camp right here. Yeah, we're just going to camp right here.
Oh, man.
After my friend had just told them that he was camped about 100 yards away.
Right.
So, shaking his head in frustration, he went back over, grabbed up his stuff, and went and sat somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a long embankment that overlooked an old cut over a nice open field that he could glass and, overlook the willows and see where a moose might come out
Mhm.
into view.
Mm-hmm.
This was probably a half mile or more away from where these guys were sitting at the lake.
Yeah.
Well, it turned into evening time, and he said, I looked down the embankment, and here comes these two guys walking up again. He said, I was sitting in plain view from their perspective. They could see me sitting in my little blind, and I watched them walk up to me, out in the wide open. They didn't walk inside the trees like I did in this little trail. They walked in the wide open, walked right up to me. And the one guy said again, "Seen any moose?" Like in a normal tone of voice, like you would greet somebody at Sportsman's Warehouse. Okay.
Oh, man.
And he said, at this point, I lost my cool.
Mm-hmm.
And this was his response. And I'll give him credit that it wasn't worse. He said, "Did you guys see me from all the way down there?" And both the guys said, well, yeah, we were just coming down here to hunt the other end. And he said, "So you're telling me that you saw me from like 600 yards or more away, sitting out here moose hunting. You know I'm hunting now. I met you earlier. And you thought it would be a good idea to walk right through where I'm trying to hunt for moose
Mm-hmm.
and walk right up to me and talk in a normal tone of voice and come just see if I've seen anything." Man, I couldn't have told him to say anything better if I tried.
It could have been a lot worse.
He was to the point. He wasn't rude, but he was
Mhm.
getting the point across of, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
You don't do that. That is basic respect
Mhm.
and ethics for your
Mhm.
fellow hunters.
Yeah.
And at that point, you've ruined the moose hunt for him, and you've ruined the moose hunt for yourself
Right.
by talking and making a bunch of noise and walking over there in the open.
Which, as we talked about on Monday, is all bad things to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the guys got a little perturbed, still walked past him and said, "Well, we're just going to go sit down here." And we talked about patience in our previous episode that came out on Monday.
Yeah.
They went down there and they sat down, and my friend said, and I started my timer.
Mm-hmm.
They sat there for 15 minutes, turned around and came walking right back down. He said, and at this point, I had lost my cool. I lost my patience. He said, at that point, I just grabbed my gun, walked back into the trees 15 yards, just like a moose would do, and they walked right past me and didn't even look. I was standing in plain view, just standing still.
Mhm.
They didn't even look. They weren't
Yeah.
even looking back and forth. They never pulled out their binoculars. One time in that whole walk of over 1,000 yards back and forth, round trip, they
Yeah.
never pulled out their binos one time to look,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they were talking and chit-chatting. He said you could hear them talking from over 500 yards away.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing how far that sound travels.
In the
It's-
still, quiet,
Yeah.
moose hunting, September, fall mornings,
Cold air. Yeah.
cool air, and these guys are just making all the racket they wanted. Basically, it comes down to they just don't know any better.
Right. Yeah.
These guys are relatively new hunters. They didn't grow up in this town. They didn't grow up hunting.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty obvious. And I think at some point in the first interaction, he asked them, "Have you guys been moose hunting before?" And no, we're just getting into hunting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they had been told the morning of that we're camped right here, right? My friend was camped right there. Ignored that. Said, well, we're just going to set up camp here. I think what it comes down to is guys, like Mariah was saying in the last episode, guys can tend to look at, from a lower 48ers perspective of deer hunting and stand hunting. And they look at it like it doesn't matter if I'm sitting 200 yards away, because what if a moose walks out in front of me and not in front of you?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've encountered that before with hunters that I've had interactions with.
Right.
Now, normally, I don't phrase it open-ended. If somebody, and I've had this happen before, if somebody drives up to me while I'm hunting, I say, "Hey, I'm hunting here. Can you please hunt somewhere else?"
Yeah.
I don't pitter-patter around the
Right.
around the obvious.
Mhm.
I don't want you there, and I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. The deer hunting I've experienced still doesn't have stands every 200 yards. I mean,
Yeah.
it can in
Yeah.
certain areas where
Yeah.
you're limited on public land and stuff like that. But that's not. I wouldn't say that's a standard operation for
It
deer
depends on
hunting.
the area you're in.
That's
I
what-
mean, yeah. Like I've definitely hunted areas that are like that. So
Yeah, well, and in like where I'm from in Kansas, sometimes a swath of public land's only 50 yards or 50 acres big,
Right.
or a
Right.
couple
Right.
100 acres big.
Right.
But if you have the area to spread out, people don't
Yeah.
like it's not a common practice. I'll say that if you can help it.
Right.
But I do think that it's just a lot of that when you run into that in the woods. It's just pure ignorance.
Yeah.
It's just
People
they don't
just
know
don't
any
know.
better.
Yeah, they just don't know.
Maybe they didn't grow up hunting. They didn't, they don't know how good a moose can hear. They're just out there winging it, which is
Yeah.
kind of the whole point of us
Yeah.
doing this,
Yeah.
is to help people that don't that weren't raised with that
Yeah.
knowledge
Educate and inform.
to have a good insight from people that were. And so, I think it's just an important thing to keep in mind. It's an important thing for everybody to be more successful and enjoyable. Because like you said, when you do something like that, you're not just ruining their hunt, you're ruining your own hunt too.
Yeah.
Now you're
exactly.
making noise. You're not helping yourself be successful out there. The more stealthy you can be, the more alone you can be, then,
Yeah.
it's the better it's going to be.
Yeah.
You and your partner are dead silent, being
Yeah.
careful
Mhm.
how you're walking, making sure you're not around other people.
Yeah.
That's the best position you can put yourself in
Right.
to get a moose.
Right.
Now, you go walking up to other hunters and talking at
Yeah.
normal tones, you're not going to see anything that
Yeah.
night, man.
Yeah.
That's all
Now-
I'm going to say.
I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to talk down on these beginners.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, it's frustrating, but just understand ethics.
Mhm.
Just give them some space. There's
Mhm.
plenty of room out there.
Yep.
When you run into somebody and you see that they're camped there or that they're hunting there, give them some space. However, if you are on the receiving end of a situation like that,
hmm
do not confront and start an argument.
Yeah.
There are plenty of situations in this state where guys get in fights, and newsflash, everybody's carrying guns.
Right.
And there are stories out there, heaven forbid, you get in a
Mhm.
shouting match with somebody about, you stay out of my moose spot. Well, I was here first. Well, I can hunt here too. Okay,
Mhm.
well, you're both right, and you're both free to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
If somebody says, well, I'm going to hunt here too, just leave.
Yeah.
Give them the chance to leave first and do the right thing. But if they don't, it's not worth competing for a hunting spot, and it's not worth you getting in an argument and making an
Mhm.
enemy out of that guy.
Right.
You might get stuck and need a hand getting out of there, and that guy might have to save your bacon.
Yep.
So don't make an enemy out of him. Try to inform him. Be kind.
Yeah.
Be black and white, but be cordial about it.
hmm
But don't confront to the point of an argument.
Now, on the flip side of that, I will say that's really good advice for people that are listening to this show that are trying to learn about hunting. They also need to understand that when they go out and let's say they do something out of ignorance like that,
Yeah.
there are some old sourdoughs out here,
Oh man,
and this is the last frontier.
it's the wild north.
Wild north. Yeah. And things happen,
Oh yeah.
and so understand that this is not, a very small swath of public land surrounded by a residential area near a city where police can get quickly.
Right.
And there's people out there that have been there for a long time, and they know that.
And they're in Alaska to stay away from people like you.
Right.
They don't
That's
know
why-
you around.
So don't. It's easy to assume, safety, I guess.
Yeah.
When you're
Mhm.
around other people, not always the best thing to assume when you're in the woods
Yeah.
with hunters you don't know.
Yeah. Don't assume that.
But not to harp on this for too long.
I was saying one more thing real fast with that. And that is, you mentioned, you make an enemy out of somebody, they're probably not going to help you out.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
If you are a new person and you drive into somebody's hunting spot or walk into somebody's hunting spot out of ignorance
Mhm.
and you do not have deference, there is a good number of moose hunters who are not going to help a fellow moose hunter in their spot, even if they aren't being polite.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in a real bad situation, there's a lot of people, I'd say the majority of moose hunters in Alaska
Yeah.
aren't going to stop to pull you out.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody probably will eventually, but it's going to be the guy whose spot you didn't just blow out.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's what we would do,
No.
Mhm.
but there is a lot of people that are like that.
Yeah.
If somebody needs help, I'll help them out, even if they just made me upset that they're in my spot, because that's the right thing to do
Right.
as a person.
Sorry that turned into a little bit of a tangent for you guys, but we did say we wanted to drive it home. It is one of the most common things that people deal with in the immediate area of towns, of
Mhm.
residential places that people live. And it's people deal with it even when they get far out.
Oh, yeah.
That's one big reason people try to get as far out as they can, not only to chase the big moose, but also
Mhm.
just to get away from competition.
Yep.
But if you're gonna hunt in a competitive environment, at least try to have some respect.
Yes.
Now, one thing I'll point out is competition in the field does not fall under hunter harassment laws. But
Mm.
there are situations you may find yourself in the field where someone is trying to actually stop your hunt for whatever personal reason they feel they need to. And that you need to know that Alaska does have laws in place that protect you in that instance.
Yeah. That's a good
one
point.
of which is like, let's say there's tourists that are around in the same area. They don't realize it's hunting season. They don't realize there's going to be guys with guns out in the woods chasing moose, and they're trying to take pictures of this bull in a field. And you roll up and you see it, and you're about to take pictures, and they start trying to scare the moose, or you start trying to get a shot on this moose.
Mm-hmm.
And these tourists start trying to scare the moose away, trying to save it. Maybe they're anti-hunting, or they don't want you.
Yeah.
They're maybe trying to push you around, something like that, trying to get you off so you can't make a steady shot. Those things happen in the state. There's many examples, but that's one I've heard of in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of that too.
So the state of Alaska does have laws that surround the stopping of any kind of lawful hunting, fishing, even just wildlife viewing. If somebody's trying to get in the way of that, if they're scaring off game so people can't even just take pictures of it, that's actually against the law.
Tampering with a trap line.
Tampering with a trap line, tampering with pretty much anything that's not yours on public land, honestly.
Yeah.
But if you want to look into that law and what it entails, it is the Alaska statute 16.05.790 and the very next following statute 16.05.791 explains all the different ways that you can civilly deal violations of the hunter harassment laws.
Mhm.
So if you end up in a situation where you've got somebody legitimately trying to stop your hunt, I'm not talking about another hunter walking into your spot. That doesn't count. That's just competition. But if you've got somebody that's legitimately trying to stop your hunt through means of harassment, there is steps you can take legally to protect yourself in that instance. And you just need to be aware of that.
On that, I think it's really cool that if there could be 100 tourists lined up out of a bus taking pictures of something, and in Alaska, that does not stop my hunt.
No, it doesn't.
I can still shoot it.
And that's one of the most common ones you hear about is they have a tour bus looking at a moose during hunting season, and somebody rolls up with a gun. Now, in the state of Alaska, you are allowed to shoot from, I need to be careful how I word this, from the road-ish. So you can pull up on the side of the road, get out of your truck, and you have to step off of the drivable surface. That's why I said I have to be careful about that, because you're not able to shoot from the road.
I laughed at the road.
Yeah, that's why it's heavy on the ish. But you can get out of your truck, literally step a foot off the drivable surface, and you're in legal hunting country. Now that depends on which highway you're on, of course. You need to look at the corridors and things like that. But in most of Alaska, it's safe to say, as long as you're off the drivable surface. So if there's a barricade on the side of the road, step on the other side of that barricade, now you're legal. You can do that.
Step
People
off the
from
berm,
step off the berm, step into the grass, step into somewhere you can't drive. Now, if there's a pullout, you can't be standing in the pullout and shoot.
Right.
That's a drivable surface.
Correct.
You have to be in the ditch or, off where you cannot have your vehicle.
Yeah.
But a lot of people from out of state don't realize that. And it's really weird to them when they see that happening. So
I think that's the best experience you could give a tourist. This is Alaska, right?
Real deal.
Bull moose is dead. I heard a story guy was stalking a grizzly bear on the haul road with his bow. I think while he was stalking it, a bunch of tourists came up and started taking pictures of it. And it was a bunch of, Asian tourists. So we get a lot of those, especially in the summer on the haul road, right?
Yeah, sure.
And they were like enamored by the fact that this guy was stalking the bear.
Right.
And he didn't kill it because he felt like it just wasn't a good ethical situation.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
I would not have done that, but I don't know if he wasn't even sure if it's like, can I do this? Is it legal? Like, he wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Anyhow, like they were all like, oh wow,
yeah,
great
real
white hunter.
Alaska. Yeah. But had they started clapping and shouting and trying to scare the bear off, or they started honking the horn on the bus, that's a big problem, and that's a legal violation. So be aware, know your rights, know what you're allowed to do. All right, so let's take a break right here.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to stealthyhunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
Hammer Bullets produces what we at the Northern Hunter consider to be the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are easy to load, extremely accurate, and best of all, they're always in stock and ready to ship. The guys at Hammer designed them so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, it sheds its petals, initiating a massive energy dump while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration. These bullets are built with 100% focus on how they perform on game, and their proprietary designs produce great BCs with specialized pressure grooves for amazing inherent accuracy and speed. They have a minimum expansion velocity of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots, but with no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity round like the Weatherby 30-378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com and use discount code The Northern Hunter to drop the hammer on your next adventure. All right, so this weekend we all got out in at least one way or another. We talked about that a little bit. Let's get into a little bit of gear. What'd you guys bring out for your firearms? What were you shooting?
Well, I took my Tikka T3X, which I just recently worked up that hammer load for. It's 168 HHTs, which shoot phenomenally out of that Tikka. I've gotten a little older one. It's got the 1-in-11 twist, which is what that bullet is specifically designed for. It's designed to be able to take that 1-in-11 twist just fine. And I found it moves a little slower. It moves a little slower, kind of like a GMX maybe.
Okay. And like the bearing surface is different than the other ones.
Yeah, looking at the load data and stuff like that. And that's kind of what it matched up with. But I still got a decent amount of speed out of it. And I was real happy with what the groups I was shooting. And really looking forward to being able to shoot something with that. Yeah. Hasn't happened yet. But I was loaded with that. And I have I just have a Leupold VX3 on there.
That's your 300, right?
300 short mag.
Short mag. Yeah. Nice. It's a good moose gun.
I also brought out my 300 Win Mag. It's a Tikka T3X Super Light as well.
Yeah.
Yours is a super light.
Yeah, it's got the fluted barrel,
which I don't know if I want it to be.
Right?
Yeah, it's not really that bad. I don't think it's that bad at all.
No muzzle brake, right?
No muzzle brake. It's nice and quiet that way.
Yeah, right.
Relatively speaking,
at least towards you.
yeah. It's a nice gun to pack around. You know, it's 24-inch barrel, 300 Win Mag. It's nothing special or fancy, and I've put a few stock upgrades on it. There's an aftermarket titanium bolt handle on there and some aluminum bottom metal and an aluminum magazine from Mountain Tech, I believe it is.
Okay.
I think. Anyway, but yeah, fairly a stock rifle, really. Just a few parts that I tacked on there to change it a little bit, but it's still the factory stock, which at some point I'd like to change out, really. But yeah, it's got a Leupold VX5 on there. I've had that scope for a number of years now. It's a good shooting gun.
Yeah,
shoots great groups. I don't have hammers loaded in mine just yet. I started working up a load, and then moose season hit, and then I just haven't had time to fine tune it and find where I wanted to load them to. And I had good accuracy with what I did load, but like Mariah said, those 168 HHTs, they are designed to fly well out of the 1-in-11 twist Tikka barrels and Seiko or Sako barrels for that matter.
And that's what yours has.
Yes. Yeah. It's also a 1-in-11 twist. Now, Tikka recently, in the last couple of years, changed that where the 30 calibers are now 1-in-10 twists.
Right. And I'm so glad that they did.
Yeah, which is the normal, standard twist rate for the 30 calibers.
Well, because so many people, myself included, I used to shoot Tikka everything, and I still have a lot of Tikkas at the house, but I had my go-to rifle for a long time was a Tikka Super Light and 7mm Rem Mag.
Yeah.
Loved that gun. Super accurate. But it had a 1 9.5 twist,
Mm-hmm.
which the standard for most American-made rifles was 1 9 at the time.
Yeah.
And I think these days you can even get tighter than that. I
Oh
believe.
yeah. You definitely can.
And so I was limited on my bullet weight that I could fire out of that thing, and I just wanted to push a heavier bullet.
Yeah.
Just personal preference, and so that's kind of why myself and other people I know had moved away from Tikka at one point.
Yeah.
But they've really been redeveloping some things.
Now that just kind of on that note, that there is definitely the factor that yes, you have to consider that the 1 in 11 twist in a 30 caliber, just say a Tikka 300 Win Mag,
Mhm.
like I've got, it's going to be likely more difficult to get heavier than 180 grain bullets to stabilize and shoot well out of that barrel, but not impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible. It's just it takes a lot of fine tuning.
Well, in some cases it might. In mine, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So in my rifle, I've shot 165 grain bullets, 180
Mhm.
grain bullets, 190s, and 200 grain bullets.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten one that doesn't shoot well yet.
Nice.
So for whatever reason, mine is not picky. I'm
Yeah.
sure that if I picked the right bullet and the wrong, just the wrong combination for that gun, I'm
Mhm.
sure I could get one that wouldn't shoot well out of it. But
Yeah.
for what I've thrown through it at this point, which is a pretty good variety of weights and bullet designs and styles, monometals and lead cores and lead core bonded, I haven't had one that doesn't shoot well yet.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I tend to stick with 180s and a 30 caliber.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of stuff, for caribou, sheep, deer, black bear, things like that, 165s are more than enough. But for
Mhm.
moose hunting, moose or grizzly bear, I would prefer the 180 grain range,
Yeah.
for sure.
The 160 range will do it, but it's always better to have that little bit of extra
Right.
weight there.
Yeah.
Even just an
Yeah.
extra 20 grains.
Yeah, just a
Anything
little more
helps.
penetration,
Yeah.
just a little more momentum.
And that's kind of where I think, Dalton, you being a little picky on your speed. Like, because you're fast, but that extra 100 feet per second that you want would
Yeah.
make a big difference with that lighter bullet
Mhm.
on something like a moose.
Now, something
It would.
interesting for accuracy is that twist rate is very important for your grouping and your accuracy, but it's not the only factor.
Right.
And if you go to any forum or any comment section of any question of any ballistics group, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see people in the exact same thread, you could say, or the exact same comment section,
Yeah.
talking about, just like you said, with the 1 in 11 twist, I'm stabilizing 200 grain bullets, this, that,
Mhm.
the other. And then the
Yep.
next guy is struggling to get anything over even close to a 180 to
Yeah.
stabilize.
Right. Right.
Same model rifle, roughly.
And I
you know,
have seen that.
same
Yeah.
same twist rates,
Yeah.
everything like that. And it's just there's other factors that can be more rifle to rifle
Yes.
differences, and it's awesome when you find one that
Yeah.
has such
Yeah.
a range like
Mine
that.
shoots and it shoots good.
Yeah. I took my my new Weatherby Mark V Apex out in the woods this
Mhm.
weekend. I'm shooting the 338 RPM. I got that Burris Eliminator. I think it's the 4th edition.
Yeah. I think it is the fourth.
and
Yeah.
It's a 4 to 16, so it's pretty nice range of magnification there. I'll say this: ever since getting that Weatherby, the thing I like about it is it's very light.
Mm.
It's almost as light as a Tikka Super Light.
Mm.
Not quite. It's like maybe a quarter pound
Mhm.
heavier.
What does it weigh dry?
6.5.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty close.
I believe the Super Lights are 6.2.
yeah.
somewhere in there,
Yeah, something
so-
like that.
And so it's very light compared to stories. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, stories of my old rifle, my Bergara, which after the modifications I did to it and everything like that, it was my own fault. I admit that, but it was a very heavy gun. It was,
Yeah.
pushing 14 pounds,
Yeah.
which was great for accuracy. That thing was spot on.
Yeah.
And I'll say that about Bergaras in general. Bergaras are phenomenal rifles
Yeah.
for accuracy. You want
Yeah.
to talk about a gun that can take any load and just give you almost a guarantee of at least a 1 MOA, if not better.
hmm
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
But this Weatherby shoots really great. It's super light. I think with the scope on it and the magazine full, I'm pushing just a touch over 8 pounds. It's like 8.1.
Man, that's still really light.
That's still really light. And compared to how long I carried that 300 for,
Yeah.
it's such a dream to carry that thing in the woods.
Yeah.
And that scope, I was able to do some testing with it in the lower light situations and the cloudy kind of, just less ideal situations. Because that is one thing with it not being one of the higher end. Typically I'm shooting Swarovskis, Zeisses, Leopolds, things like that.
Yeah.
With the Burris, I was really impressed with the low light performance on it.
Good.
I felt fully adequate to be able to shoot into the very last hours of daylight.
Good.
I didn't feel like I was handicapped in any way.
Yeah.
A lot of times with range finding devices, you get that little bit of dimness,
Yeah.
and that can really affect it. I will say it was a little bit dimmer than some of my clearer glass, some of my higher end glass, but not enough to affect hunting.
Yeah.
Not enough that I wouldn't feel comfortable taking a shot on a moose or a caribou or anything in that last 30 minutes of light, know? And so I was real happy with that. I tested the rangefinder on a bunch of different stuff. Seems to range pretty accurately compared to other rangefinders I had with me as well.
Good.
And so we'll see if I get a chance to actually utilize the ballistic calculator that's built into it. And we'll have fun. We'll talk about that more as the season goes on. So
yeah, well, good deal.
So what other let's dive into a little bit of gear here.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about methods this week. Between Monday and today, we've talked about respect. We've talked about ethics and things of that nature. But what kind of gear are you looking at for your moose camp? Mo, you'd mentioned that your moose camp is probably going to be the heaviest camp you set up during the year. It's going to be a lot more items, I guess you could say, than you would ever take on a sheep hunt.
A lot more comfortable.
Any kind of, and a lot more comfortable. So what are some things you guys maybe used for the first time this year that improved your hunting, or that is just a staple that you always bring to moose hunt?
Well, I wanted
moose camp
to start with a piece of clothing and a bit of a negative review on it.
Oh, really?
Getting
spicy up in here.
So this particular piece of clothing I have worn, and there's a positive application for it.
Okay.
But it does not do well in the wet weather at all, which surprised me. Really surprised me. It is the Sitka Ascent pant.
Oh, really?
And now it's not a waterproof pant or anything like that. It's not a waterproof pair of pants, but it's lightweight, breathable. They call it a soft shell. They're very some of the most comfortable pants I've ever worn. I loved them spring bare because they kept me warm a little bit into the evenings, but they also stayed cool at night, which was really sweet, right? A pair of pants that does that, temperature controls.
Highly breathable.
Yeah.
Highly breathable, but still, just the right weight to still hold some warmth and kept my legs from getting really cold. And so I wasn't having to switch layers or add on or anything like that, or hold a jacket over your legs like you do when it gets really cold.
Right.
When you're sitting in a tree stand.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I put them on. So first on my ride in, I wore my de Havilland soft shell pants from Stone, and they got wet. So I hung them from my tent. So the next morning I put these on. I thought I'll just put these on under my rain pants and I put on my Lacrosse Alpha Burleys.
Yeah.
Right. Which had gotten a little water in the tops of them.
Yeah.
But the foot part was dry, but just around the sides was wet. And it soaked right into my pants. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought all these things are super light. They'll dry out, no problem. I didn't wear them again on that hunt, and they did not dry out in that hunt.
Really?
Despite, there was a lot of moisture in my tent. I'll get into that in my tent review a little bit later. There was a lot of moisture in my tent. It was very wet the whole time. We had a dry day, but even then it was wet. My de Havillands, by the time the next day came around, had pretty much dried out, hanging in that damp, wet tent.
Yeah.
And they're a much thicker soft pant.
Yes. Very heavy duty.
Extremely impressed with how fast those things dried out, despite the fact that they were in a wet situation.
Yeah.
These Ascent pants, hanging in the sun on that dry day, still were not dry.
Really?
No kidding.
How much spandex is in those pants?
Let's see here.
I'd be real interested to know that.
I can tell you.
Ton of
I
information.
gotta figure out which ones I'm wearing right now, but I can tell you there's a lot of
Cordura
spandex.
nylon woven blend. 10% spandex. 30% nylon, 60% Cordura. Now, I have gotten them wet when it's hot out. They dry out very quickly when there's enough heat. But when it was cool, they just held the moisture.
They didn't push it out.
When they dry quickly, was it in like a little breezy type condition, like riding on a wheeler or something like that?
Riding on a wheeler or walking. Yeah.
So there was some airflow moving.
Yeah. Because I've worn them in the rain and then like it dried out and there'd be some airflow. Yeah. So like I said, where I was, it wasn't airflow. Even hanging them out and then coming back later that day and they were just as wet. I hang them up in my tent and they're wetter because they soaked up the moisture in the tent. Which, so anyhow, those pair of pants, highly recommend when you're climbing a mountain in the when it's spring, summer.
Yeah. Early to mid season.
Yeah, exactly. They're very comfortable to wear in the heat. And they do fine into the nights and in the early mornings when it's a little chillier.
Right.
But later in the season when it's colder out, I highly do not recommend for that.
Yeah.
That was something that I noticed on my deer hunt in the beginning of August. I wore my de Havilland Stone Glacier pants against my better judgment, probably because I knew the temperatures were going to be higher, and I knew that there was a good chance that it was going to be pretty wet. It ended up not being all that wet most of the time. We definitely got some rain there towards the end, but we were really pretty fortunate to have very pleasant weather for Southeast Alaska that time of year. And they were too much pant as far as weight goes. They were heavier duty than I really should have worn.
Right.
I probably should have worn either like the de Havilland Lights or something like a Kuiu Katana pant, which I've been disappointed with the durability of the Kuiu Katana pant. A lot of guys really like those because they're advertised as a lightweight and very durable pant. I've had terrible problems with the fabric pilling on the outside.
Oh, really?
Just getting like little picks at it. And it just has like little fuzzballs all over the outside of them in the high wear zones. So I've stopped wearing those Katana pants from Kuiu. The fit is nice. The weight is nice. Like Mariah, you said that they're a great early to mid-season pant. Not when it cools off, but I've stopped wearing them altogether because I'm not a fan of the durability of them. I just don't like that. So I decided to go with those de Havilland heavier duty pants because of the durability of them. And the durability is fantastic on those de Havillands. And I did get them wet, walking through some of that wet grass and that alpine type country, not wearing rain pants, but kneeling down in the wet vegetation and things like that. And they dried surprisingly fast.
That's what I noticed.
Shockingly fast.
I didn't expect them to. They're not I didn't feel like they were designed for that.
Yeah. Even being a heavier pant, like I expect heavy duty, like soft shell type material pants or soft shell jackets to dry very, very slowly.
Right.
They just tend to get heavy and they just get waterlogged and they feel like they're never going to dry out without a heat source. But I have been impressed with them. I don't love the Velcro zipper on those pants, just being honest with you.
So
I've gone back and forth on it. I see the idea of having an adjustable waist on those. I think it's a good idea at heart, but I'm not a fan of it.
So this is my review on that versus the zipper on the Ascent pant. The zipper on the Ascent pant has a zipper that goes up and then a button that buttons over the top of the zipper.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to reach in there and unzip, but you can't zip all the way back up without unbuttoning, which is really annoying.
Right.
The Velcro system on the de Havilland works well if you don't accidentally just rip it open. Because they've got a buckle, which is a sweet design. The buckle is. It's awesome. And it's above the zipper.
It's a built-in belt.
It's the built-in belt to the front. It's in the front of the pant, not all the way around. And it's got a buckle that just clips into place. And it's not a big buckle in your way or anything like that. But the and then what you're talking about with the Velcro is there's Velcro on one side of the zipper, so you can actually adjust it so you don't, if you're a little smaller waist but you need the longer legs, so you buy that size pant, you can tighten it up and you can tighten up where the zipper's at without having that bulge of pants kind of that bunches up. And it's a great design. I think a lot of it, that versus the Ascent pants, was amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had the same issue where, and I've worn those a lot before, but I've had that same issue where if I unbuckle it, like that Velcro will come right open before
Yeah.
I reach for the zipper if
Yeah.
I'm not paying attention. Now,
Yeah.
if I'm paying attention and thinking about it, it's never been an issue. And I think that's some of it. I think it's a great design in this. You should get it, put them on, get it fit right, and sew that right where it's at. And that would be perfect.
Right.
I've thought about doing that. The other thing is that little hard plastic left-hand side zipper Velcro attachment where that strip attaches to the left side of the zipper
Yep.
from the inside, where that attaches onto that Velcro pad in the crotch of that pant. At the bottom of that zipper strip, there is that bottom plastic piece. When I'm walking a lot, tends to scratch at and chafe the insides of my thighs.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I never had that issue.
Now it comes and goes, and I've taken my Leatherman scissors and trimmed mine back like 4 different times now, and it seems to always work its way into a spot where it's poking me, and it's not a huge deal, but it's uncomfortable. And if I'm paying for an expensive pair of hunting pants, I expect them
Right.
to at least fit and feel nice.
Yeah.
Other things about them, I like them for the most part. I think they're a good pant. Again, I think they're much for that early August deer hunt that I went on. I won't wear them again on an early season hunt like that. I would not wear those sheep hunting, I don't think. They're just too much weight. Even having the monstrous leg vents that are way overkill as far as a zipper vent goes,
Mm-hmm.
you can dump a crazy amount of heat out of those things.
Yeah.
You could make them work on a sheep hunt, but they wouldn't be my first choice by any means.
Do you have the lights yet?
No.
No, I
No.
want to get a pair.
The ones that I wore this weekend were the Fjallraven Kebs.
Okay.
They were a pretty lightweight, pretty durable pair of pants, and they dry fast, but they're tough. They've got tough fabric sewn into the high wear areas. I like those Fjallraven pants.
Based on, I haven't had the chafing issue with the zipper for myself at all. Based on my experience with the de Havillands, I think I'll definitely probably pick up the lights.
Yeah.
And in a later season situation where I don't necessarily need as heavyweight of a pant, I
Yeah.
could wear those, and they should dry just like the de Havillands do.
Yeah.
The other pants I'm looking at is First Light has a merino based outer layer pant.
Obsidian.
The obsidian merino,
okay.
and they're supposed to be tough, but it's supposed to be good in the warmer weather and colder weather,
Yeah.
but breathable. I really
Wool
like
is
the way
regulating. Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
like the way those look, and you got to have cargo pockets on your hunting pants. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we get into the later season here, we are approaching the second weekend of moose season here that we're all about to embark on.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year, I tend to switch over to a couple of different late season pants. The Kuiu brush pants are not technically a late season pant. They've got zips on the insides of the thighs and on the outside of the thighs, and they've got a much heavier denier fabric on the rest of the pant. They're a lot more durable. Therefore, they're a lot less breathable.
Right.
So they do better in the cooler conditions, but they're not a real true late season pant, I don't think, by design. I like those in spring bear season a lot. Like for early spring bear guiding, I liked wearing those pants this last spring.
Yeah.
But I think my 2 favorite late season pants right now, based off of all the features included, the Grummins, the Stone Glacier de Havillands are a good late season choice, but the Sitka Timberlines are warmer, and
do they dry well?
yes, they
Okay.
dry well, and they have built-in knee pads and waterproof seat in the
Okay,
butt of the
cool.
pant.
Mm.
So the Sitka Timberlines are a really good late season pant. And if you get into really cold conditions, I really like the Kuiu Axis pants.
Mm.
They're a heavy duty soft
Yeah.
shell pant with fleece
I was looking
lining.
at those the other day.
And they are waterproof seam taped in from the knee down and then from the back of the thigh up to the rear end.
Mm-hmm.
So there's waterproof paneling in them. So when you kneel down in those late season conditions, whether it's rain or snow or whatever,
Right.
you don't soak through that pant immediately and get that fleece lining wet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fleece lined. So they're very, very warm pants.
Right.
Not a high exertion type of hunting pant unless it's wintertime,
Right.
but it's nice to be able to have a built-in pair of pants with fleece lining so I don't have to put on long johns
Yeah, that is very nice.
sometimes.
And those will be nice for especially sitting.
Exactly.
When you're not
for
exerting
long,
yourself
for long
along.
glassing sessions.
Yeah.
It's really nice. And then when it gets seriously cold, you add a pair of long johns to those fleece lined pants. It is a really warm combination.
Yeah.
That's that. Yeah, I'll probably switch to wearing those here this weekend because I'm expecting it to be pretty cold down where I'm going to be hunting.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, I've always just, at this point, I run, a base layer or two underneath the de Havillands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have what I run for base layer right now on my legs is I've got a Sitka lightweight merino and then heavyweight synthetic.
Yeah.
And I put the merino against the skin,
Yeah.
odor control and all that. And then the heavyweight synthetic over that when I really need a lot of insulation.
Yeah.
With the de Havillands, and that's done great.
Yeah.
Mm.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're on clothing, we had a question about
Yeah.
the
The
First Light storm
Omen.
shelter,
Owen, yeah.
Omen storm shelter.
Mm-hmm.
I've had one for about a year now.
Yeah.
And I took it to Southeast last year.
And that's just the jacket, not the pants, right?
It's just the raincoat.
Okay.
I don't have the
Yeah.
pants. They're on my shopping list. It is, they are spendy like any good breathable rain gear is.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they're about I think the
It's
pants
like
are $380.
Yeah.
Jacket's $390,
And the
I think.
jacket's $390. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you get the non-camo one, or maybe the camo one's $10 cheaper. I don't remember which, but
Yeah.
anyhow, I've had it for about a year. I took it on the Southeast hunt. It worked great. That's a first
Mhm.
hunt, right?
Right.
A lot of gear works really good on the first hunt.
DWR is fresh.
Right.
and- yeah.
Right. I wore it on and off. A day at work, it would rain a little, so I'd throw it on because I had it in my truck and whatnot. But this fall, it's been raining a lot,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I
A
was
lot.
wearing it a lot for work, doing stuff where I knew it wouldn't be prone to tear because it's an expensive jacket, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I took it up with me when I went to Point Hope on that. I talked about that a few episodes ago, and we were doing vinyl siding, and we worked about 3.5 days nonstop. And it rained 75% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what I had with me for a raincoat. I was like, I'm going to put this thing to the test.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take it with me. And I took it up there. I was told to expect rain, and they said it stopped. It was beautiful until we started work. That
That's
day we
how it
got
works.
there and it was pouring rain, right? And we started
Mhm.
working in the rain, and it was windy, it was rainy, it was cold. But no, I didn't even really give a second thought to trying to be careful with the vinyl because, like I said, we were on a time crunch. We were there for 3.5 days. That's how much time
Mhm.
we had to do the siding on a church building we were up there to work on. And I wore that thing almost the whole time except for when it wasn't raining, and not a mark. I didn't get wet. Obviously you get rain down the inside of your collar in the front, right? And that soaks down there. But I made sure I had the right gear because I was told to expect rain. The other two guys I was working with, some reason that to expect rain thing kind of went over their head when they brought this or that. But
Cotton
Right.
hoodies and
I was, well, yeah, right. And I also brought, I brought my synthetic hoodie, my Sitka hoodie, heavyweight hoodie, and a few things like that. And because of that, I was comfortable the whole time because I had the right kind of gear. In that raincoat held up, there's not a mark on it still from that.
nice.
I took it, what did I do? I can't remember what I did with it directly after that. But then this last weekend, I took it out and it rained 85% of the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And on the ride in, busting brush on the wheeler all the way in. Most of the hiking I did out there because it was so thick, I couldn't help but walk and bust brush.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, it got wet. It got to the point where the face fabric, the face fabric will soak through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean you get water on the inside of the jacket from the outside, but the face fabric soaks through. You sweat out the inside, and the inside and the outside are wet. Not because it's not waterproof anymore.
Mhm.
And it got to that point.
Yeah.
Now it dried out in a few hours
Yeah.
when it was a dry day, but it still did phenomenally.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to using it in a little bit more of a situation where it's not constantly wet out
Mm.
Yeah.
Because when you get that little bit of rain, but you're sweating and you can see exactly what it's doing.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to using it in Southeast this year
Yeah.
to kind of, a year later, a lot
Yeah.
more use.
Yeah.
See how it holds up.
See how it holds up. Right. Like
Yeah.
I said, right now, that thing is tough.
Yeah.
It is
Perfect.
very tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that impresses me, I don't have the Omen Storm Shelter rain gear from First Light. I don't have that. I haven't seen but a couple of clients either that have it yet. It's still relatively
Mm-hmm.
new on the market for the rain gear side of their lineup,
Mm-hmm.
and the design and the features and the fit and the overall I don't know, impression I get from the
Mhm.
garment
Mm-hmm.
from an out perspective of not even owning one. It's very similar to like an Arc'teryx style design mountain weather shell, right?
Yeah.
It's very well thought out. It's very well designed. And what's impressive about it is it's a 4.5 layer fabric laminate. Most rain gear is a 3 layer laminate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the First Light Omen Storm Shelter is a 4.5 layer. So that there is more to that composite material,
Mm.
which allows for greater waterproof ratings. And usually when you add laminates to a fabric like that in a rain jacket, you really sacrifice in packability
Right.
and in weight. And that Omen Storm Shelter is really no heavier duty feeling
Mm-hmm.
or no bigger packed down than the ultralight Stone Glacier M5 rain gear that I do own.
It's a little bit heavier.
Yeah, sure. A touch heavier, but as far as packability and size goes, it's really not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
For what you're getting in added performance
Right.
and the durability of it, because the M5 stuff is relatively durable, but it's not that durable.
You're not going to wear it doing vinyl siding.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And and for reference, like the M5 is a step above like the Sitka Dew Point ultralight paper thin rain gear,
Right.
which is, for my purposes, useless. I that rain gear wouldn't last me 2 hunts.
Yeah.
It's just too thin.
First Light
Mhm.
does have another rain system that's
Storm
supposed to be
tight or
water.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's called the Vapor Storm Light, and it's it's more of an ultralight.
Yeah.
I don't have it. Haven't held it. Really don't have any interest in it.
Yeah.
What I have, I would rather have something tough that's a little heavier.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna see if it
When it
tells
comes to breathable rain gear, I am more interested in durability
Mhm.
and waterproofness,
Mhm.
because any breathable rain gear, barring some waterfowl type stuff, most breathable rain gear, the greatest benefit you're going to get is weight and packability
Mhm.
versus rubber PVC rain gear. Now, there are guys that'll, kick and scream that rubber PVC rain gear is the only way to go for rain gear. And
I wore rubber pants that week.
for
Sucked. I wanted so bad to have the pants to match the jacket. It would have been so much better of a weekend.
for the applications that we've used it in,
Mhm.
I haven't gotten the high end breathable rain gear to fail.
Right.
I've had lighter weight stuff that's less durable and more packable leak
Mhm.
after extended brush busting and things like that. But I haven't gotten, let's just use for example, like the Kuiu Yukon rain gear. I haven't gotten that to soak
Mhm.
through.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten my Sitka Stormfront jacket to soak through, which that's Gore-Tex Pro.
Mhm.
And that is
That's unavailable right now.
that
right?
is discontinued
Yeah,
temporarily, as
right.
is the Cloudburst,
Yeah.
which is their midweight version. Right now, Sitka Gear only has one big game lineup of rain gear, and that's the Dew Point. Now they have some other stuff that's like fleece
they're-
brushed and things like that.
Or Thunderhead.
Yeah, that's like a
Yeah.
fleece brushed exterior.
Right.
It's more of like a whitetail application. That fleece stuff, you talk about a face fabric that soaks up water and gets
Right.
heavy. That's
Right.
it. But for big game applications, Sitka only has the dew point in current production right now. But like that Kuiu Yukon stuff, I use that a lot guiding. It does work real well. For the moose hunting that I did here this last weekend, I wore that Yukon jacket and rubber rain pants. Now, the reason that I wore rubber rain pants is I've got my rubber knee-high boots on, and I'm walking around in the swamp and the water a lot. And the rain pants go over the top of your knee-high boots, right? I didn't want my breathable rain pants, even the Yukons, to get soaked and covered in mud and silt.
I wasn't hunting in that kind of an area.
And get that in the breathable fabric, because then you have to bring them home and you got to wash them off, and then you got to wash them and put them through a wash cycle and all that kind of stuff to clean out the pores of that fabric. So in that situation, rubber rain pants is the way to go.
Right.
When I can, I much prefer breathable rain pants. You don't get, that sweat box feeling in your lower half of your body from that rubber rain gear.
Get the sag.
Yeah. and no rubber rain pants come with a good belt system.
Well, yeah, and when I'm typically running my rain pants, they're not actually pants. I run the bibs.
Yeah.
Because then you don't get anything coming back up.
Yeah, but when you have to pee.
Oh, it's gnarly. Yeah,
I know.
It gets
I
bad,
run the bibs.
I hate
it's
wearing
nice
the bib.
for sitting down. Like if you're sitting down in tundra or anything like that, there's no belt line for the water to soak over. But you want to talk about the sag. Yeah, it's real. Like when you go to step over logs and things like that on the trail, like
constantly
just try to walk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There is definitely a benefit too.
Yeah, it's definitely less comfortable. But just wrapping back to the Omen Storm Shelter, I would like to try it. I would be very interested in trying the Omen Storm Shelter.
Yeah.
Most of First Light stuff, I think they do make some pretty good gear. It's not what I have. It's just not what I've gone with in the past. I've got a lot of other stuff that I don't need to go out and buy a new set of gear, right?
Yeah.
But at some point when it's time to replace some rain gear in the future, after I wear through a few sets, because that's just part of wearing breathable rain gear. Really, any rain gear doesn't last altogether that terribly long.
Right.
Especially breathable stuff. It's got a lifespan, and once it wears out, it's just done. And then it leaks like a sieve and you're done.
Right.
Some guys whine and complain about that because, it's so expensive. Yeah, but if you get your use out of it, then you reap the benefits of having that comfort added to the waterproofness of it on a hunt, and you're so much more comfortable.
Most rubber rain gear is going to rip and tear.
Yeah.
Before.
I have to buy a new Helly Hansen jacket and pants or bibs every single year because using them guiding in the boats and stuff down on the coast,
on something,
carrying firewood logs and whatnot while I'm in base camp, helping out around camp, carrying things back and forth in and out. Even if I only wear my rubber rain gear in camp, at base camp, I still get pinholes all over that thing.
Well, and the benefit, a lot of people might argue that, but the rubber rain gear is only $80 for a top and a bottom. It's like,
but how many times do I got to spend $80?
But one, how many times you got to spend $80, and two, how much is it worth to not have those holes get ripped while you're in the field?
Exactly,
and you need it to perform.
Right.
Yeah,
which I've had happen.
Exactly.
Well, and a lot of times you wear, I had a set of Helly Hansen bibs that the other day they just randomly a seam opened up down by the leg.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just what happens after some wear.
There's a reason it's $80.
Well, and especially if they're out in the sun and cooking a little bit, and
you wear them in the sun, right?
Yeah.
Which, if you're in the sun, you better rip those things off.
Right.
Practically.
So anybody was wondering, the Omen Storm Shelter is 26 ounces.
Okay.
It's really not that heavy.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
So kind of along the same lines, but a slightly different direction. Talking about rain and weather and wind and all that.
Yeah.
So several episodes ago now, we talked to Ryan Lampers and Brian Call about their use of the teepee.
Yeah.
The Peaks.
Oh, yeah.
Peaks 4-man teepee tent there.
Yeah.
And the concerns that we had as far as how does it perform in rain and wind and soft ground and all this other stuff. You've been running that for a little while now. You went ahead and took the plunge and invested in it, Dalton.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was curious, as much as we've talked about the weather, the wind that we got this weekend, the rain we got this weekend, which was a lot on some of those mornings.
Right.
It was coming down hard. How How did it perform? What's your review of that?
So I've used it on 2 hunts at this point.
Right.
Okay, so not a ton of use, not a whole lot of field time.
Initial impressions.
Yeah, from the first 2 hunts, I'm very happy with it.
Are you? Yeah.
I think it is appropriately sized for a 4-man rated tent. Seeing it keeps with the model of tent sizing that they say you can fit 4 guys in it, and I look at it and go, yeah, but that sure wouldn't be comfortable.
No.
Tent person, size ratings are, take that number and subtract 2 for comfort.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been using it as. It's just my wife and I.
Mm-hmm.
And both hunts that we've used it on so far, we've had cots along with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not directly sleeping on the ground on a ground cloth, right? We've brought little, relatively inexpensive cots that they're made by Mission Mountain. They're not the super high end cots, that they don't cost an arm and a leg.
Mm.
They're not the lightest weight option out there, but they keep you off the ground a little bit. So I haven't used the teepee in its truest backpacking ultralight opportunity that you can utilize that system in, right? So so far it's done really well in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
It does a good job keeping the water out.
Mm-hmm.
You can pitch it a little higher off the ground around the skirt of the teepee and give yourself a little air gap there for it to breathe to keep the condensation out. Or you can pitch it much tighter and suck down to the ground all the way around to keep the wind and the rain out of it.
Yeah.
Which I did that over the last 4 days of moose hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So it does well. It does well in the wind. I think it's a great design. Having the trekking pole cross rafter system in the ceiling of that to really give yourself a little more headspace and a place to hang some gear off of as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great design all around.
Yeah.
I like the tent. There are a few things about it that I wish were a little different. But it's just trivial things that I'll probably just get used to it with time, like anything.
Right.
There's things about my MSR 2-man hubba tent that I don't love either, but to each their own, right?
Yeah.
I think for what it is and for the cost, it's probably as good as, if not better than most other options in the market as far as the teepees go. Kind of the big standout thing that Peak's marketed with that is that you could put those cross members in the ceiling.
Right.
That it's not just for headspace, but you can also increase the rigidity of the sidewalls.
Yeah.
Traditionally, teepees have been known to have problems in the wind because you've got this monster cone sticking up in the air. You have a lot more height and headspace, which adds to the comfort level of the tent.
Mm-hmm.
But teepees have traditionally struggled in the wind,
right?
Because the top half of the tent doesn't have guy lines on it, right?
Exactly.
Because you can't put guy lines up that high, or else when you stake out the top guy lines, it pulls slack under the bottom half of the tent, and then you have to re-tension the bottom guy lines and really just readjust the whole thing at that point. So, adding the cross members in the ceiling really adds a lot of rigidity to the top half of the tent, to where those walls all around the tent don't cave in under the wind. Mm-hmm. So now you've got the top third of the cone is rigid because the poles are underneath of it.
Yeah.
The middle third of the tent is where the poles are. And then the bottom third of the tent is where all the guy lines are. Mm-hmm. So there's really not a weak spot for wind to really push in on that tent at that point. Once you get it all staked out nice and tightly with all the guy lines in the right places, and you get the center pole adjusted to have the right amount of tension on it, and you've got the bottom sucked down to the ground, and you got the trekking poles up in the rafters in the ceiling, that thing is rock solid.
Yeah.
I really do like that aspect about it. That alone, I think, is enough for someone to say, instead of going out and buying a Seek outside teepee,
right,
which is pretty much the main competitor in the teepee tent market. Black Diamond makes some. I think Argali makes a few. And then Seek Outside, and then also, oh man, I'm spacing it out now. I think KUIU might make one as well, if I'm not mistaken. But if for no other reason, all other things aside, a teepee's a teepee, right? It's lightweight, it's packable, it's fast to put up. Stake out the four corners, put the pole up, and boom, the tent is up, right? And then just stake out the guy lines and you're good to go. It's a very easy, simple setup tent. And it does save you some weight, and you can add a stove to it. I like the fact that it's adaptable with a wood stove. That's another, I hate the term game changer because I think it's overused so much with gear and people that are just trying to push gear to people. But it really does change how you can look at the outlook of a hunt. And say, look, if I get rained on and I get soaked, it's not a big deal anymore because I can get in that tent, hotbox myself, and dry everything out. It turns that thing into a sauna. It is not a whole lot of space for a wood stove. It really does a great job of drying things out. Sleeping bag, if you've got a down sleeping bag that gets wet, you can dry that sucker right out. So all in all, I am really happy with it. I think it's a good product. It's a good design, and I'm going to keep on using it until I find something with it that I really hate that much to stop. But I can't see that happening yet. I will say I won't take it sheep hunting. It's too big of a footprint to take sheep hunting. There are a lot of places that up in sheep country you don't have that much square footage, if you will, for a footprint of that of a tent of that size.
What is it? 9 foot by 10 foot, something like that.
It's something like that. It's a lot of room. It would be the equivalent of taking like a big 4-man tent sheep hunting. You wouldn't do that, but most guys are taking 2-mans or 1-man tents sheep hunting. So for sheep hunting, for the time being, until they make a smaller one, if they make a smaller one, I'm going to stick with that MSR 2-man tent. It's traditional dome style freestanding tent. That's the other thing too. There's not always a great plethora of opportunities to stake out a tent up in sheep country.
That's
it's
very
all
true.
rocky. I end up using rocks wrapped in my guy lines on my MSR tent for stakeout points because I don't always have spots to put stakes in the ground. You couldn't pull that off with a teepee. It's just not the same application. So it's just a little bit different. So for the use case scenarios that I've used it in, it does work really well, and I'm happy with it so far.
How does it do? Because with the teepee style, there's no rain fly.
Correct.
So normally you have
wall.
to set up your tent.
Wall.
You just add your rain fly on top of that. That's kind of what protects you. So with the teepee, it's an all built in one shell. How has that been as far as, does it let any kind of condensation through? Is there any kind of dripping on the inside that you've noticed, especially during like this last weekend? Because there was some heavy rain during this last weekend.
If you are in a camp area where the wind isn't going to get up underneath the tent, I like pitching it with about 1 inch of free space around the bottom of the skirt of the tent. That way it does breathe. It does have a couple little mesh cutouts in the top that are underneath a little rain cover, like little vents up the top of the cone of the tent. So it does breathe a little bit on its own, but not nearly enough if you pitch it down tight. If it's cool, damp, cold weather, and you pitch that thing tight down to the ground, there will be a significant amount of moisture on the inside of that tent. That's the case with any 4-season type of tent, though. There's less ventilation, and there's
less room for that moisture to escape.
Exactly. It's inherently built with more weather capabilities in mind. Therefore, it sacrifices breathability.
I would imagine having a fire in there probably dries a lot of that out.
It dries it out almost immediately. So it does a good job of that. But it is, condensation is something to think about. For sure.
I didn't use anything radically different than what my normal setup is this year, but so far at least. But I will say, I got the chance to try out one of those cots you were talking about, the Mission Mountain ones. I really like the setup of those. Because traditionally for moose camp, I've not run really anything other than if I'm in an area where I can bring it and I have a stash bag that I keep my tent in that I can get an air mattress in as well. so I can keep it all pretty consolidated. And I've used an air mattress for moose camp because why wouldn't you, right?
Mhm.
You can afford the weight, you can afford the comfort. It's just nice to sleep on something a little softer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they fail fairly often, especially in the backcountry. So I've kind of started moving away from those. And my one holdback is a lot of these ultralight cots, the sub 5 pound cots. They're short, typically speaking. They're not very long cots. And anybody who's listened to the show knows I'm 6.5 feet tall. That is a challenge for me. For a lot of lightweight items in the hunting world, is they're not designed for bigger individuals. I got the chance to lay on one of those that was set up, and they're really comfortable. And they're plenty big enough for a guy my size, at least. If you're any taller than me, one, I feel sorry for you, but two, it might be a little bit short for you at that point. But up to a 6.5 foot individual, I'd say they're perfectly comfortable. They're super lightweight and they're affordable. I think you can find them anywhere from
they're like $80.
80. I think the most expensive one I found was like $120.
Yeah.
So great design, and honestly, it's an amazing piece of just added comfort you can have when you can afford the weight.
Mhm.
Yes.
And oddly enough, it's a cot that's lighter than an air mattress. So and less bulk.
When you say air mattress, you're talking about like
Just one.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one you buy from like Walmart.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a standard, something you set up
Not
for
like an inflatable
guest.
Thermarest mattress.
No. Not like a hunting
Right.
sleeping pad,
Like an air
an
bed.
actual like air bed.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's moose camp. Why wouldn't you? Right. I mean, that's the heavy camp. So,
Yep.
but yeah, they are prone to fail, and we had that happen over the weekend, and I was just like, you know what, a cot sounds pretty nice. So so I got to try one of those out. I'm going to be ordering one soon. I'm excited for that.
At that point,
for the future.
I mean, I've always thought that it kind of be a cool idea to just bring a water bed with a heating element in there. Just sleep on a warm water bed.
Now you're talking about some weight.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, dude, there's always water in moose country, right?
Can you imagine cleaning that thing out afterwards?
Oh, man.
And the smell. Oh, man, the smell.
Buy a new one every year.
Yep. So
that's my $1 million idea, folks.
Yeah. So Mo, you had alluded to a story you had about your tent.
I do.
This weekend.
I do have a story. I have a tent review, and this is a budget item. So for those of you that are like any of us, trying to figure out what to spend money on and what you can afford to go do.
So many options.
If you're looking for a tent that's wheeler in or hunting off the road system, this ain't a backpack tent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great tents out there. I grew up and Dalton uses these a ton too. The Cabela 6-man geodesic style tent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great tent, but they run minimum like $600.
Yeah, $600.
$600, and some of the bigger ones it can get more expensive depending if you get the guide model or not, and all that kind of stuff. And there's other companies and brands that make that style tent. Stone has one that's that size. Do you know what that one cost?
Over $1,000.
$2,500. I just looked at it.
Wow.
Blew me away. Yeah.
Wow.
And it weighs 32 pounds.
Wow. You just get an Arctic oven at that point.
You may as well. Yeah. Arctic ovens are amazing, right? That's what my dad uses now. He used to use the Cabela's geodesic. Now he uses an Arctic oven.
I'm going to give you a little news flash. An Arctic oven is in my future.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's in mine too.
Mine too.
I just
really want
I don't know
one.
when. But anyhow, all that being said, any of these nice tents are going to run you from $5 or $6 at the least to easily several grand. I saw one pop up and it was like 10 grand.
Yeah.
I can't remember, or maybe there was like a North Face that was like $5 grand.
Oh man.
North Face.
For what now?
For it was a bigger, like super, super heavy duty, like Arctic oven style almost.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's more like Arctic Expedition is what that was designed for.
Right.
So like full on real Arctic conditions.
Yeah. Because I think North Face, I don't think really good.
Like,
yeah. But anyhow, so I have pulled up right now the tent that I used. My dad saw it and said, "Oh, that's a great deal. I'll buy that for Mariah. I know he could use a easier tent to set up." Because I have an old canvas spring bar tent. I love it for a lot of situations, but it's heavy and it's just a lot of work and takes a while to set up.
Yeah.
in the design, isn't necessarily ideal. It's incredibly tough. It's still waterproof. I haven't coated it.
Yeah.
And it's like 40 years old. Okay.
Nice.
I was just looking up that website and looking at how long ago like the ones I have were made and stuff like that. Anyhow, so he saw this one and it looks like a geodesic. It's not a geodesic means it has 3 poles crossing at the top. It's not. It just has 2 poles that cross at the top that go to the 4 corners, and then 2 more poles that come around the sides.
Okay.
Down to the opposite side, and they cross each other towards the bottom and make a little triangle down there. Anyhow, I did set it up briefly in my living room before I left. I'm glad I did. Because I got out there and it was dark and it was raining. So this is a 2-piece tent. You've got your main tent. You've got a rain fly. We've mentioned before, tent isn't worth anything if it doesn't have a full rain fly.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
My dad saw this. It was my birthday, and he's like, "Hey, that'll be great. He can use that." And he was right. Anyhow, but I looked it up. It's $220. He bought it from Costco. I see it one other website because you can't order it on Costco's website. It was at Costco here in Fairbanks. I don't even know if they still have it, but if they do, that's a good deal. And I mean, it'd be a good tent to throw for backup somewhere. But it's available on a website called shopeasyusa.com for $247. Anyhow, it's got a full fly, goes all the way to the ground. It's got flaps that come out from the fly. It has a nice vestibule, the one that comes out at an angle with the roll door in the middle. It's one of the best designs on a dome style tent you can have, because any of the other ones catch the wind like crazy. I got out there. It was raining when I set it up. So the number one thing I didn't like about it was the way the poles go in the tent. They have to slip all the way through the tube. The 2 main ones have to slip all the way through the tube, through like a slot in a tube in the tent to get all the way through.
Okay.
It's a kind of a pain. Makes it longer to set up. Which means my tent got wetter. And wetter and wetter. So I got those poles in. I got it partially stood up in position. Then I had to get the other poles together and put in and figure it out. And then I finally got the the rain fly up, and I thrown it up there upside down by accident. And so it was getting wet on the inside, and I finally got it set up and put together. Now, other than the pole design and the way they go in, that was pretty poor design. It makes it a little bit of a pain to set up. For me, for the price, for a budget, this tent, if you use this once a year, could last you a really long time.
Right.
If you use it a lot, it could easily last you a season or 2. The design, I mean, there was a lot of design things on the design of it that were really nice. It came with tie-off strings on the fly.
Yeah.
They've got the reflective material in them, right? My dad's, $2,000 Arctic oven didn't even come with those. He had to go buy them himself.
Right.
I did have some dripping and stuff on the inside, but I think that was because I got it all so soaked getting it set up.
Right.
There was moisture run through.
It just already had the moisture in it.
Yeah. Now, after a day or 2 of constant rain, the dripping on the inside, and I say dripping, I mean, we're talking 1 or 2 an hour.
Yeah.
Nothing major. There was so much moisture on the inside from the rain. The main tent without the fly has a big vent in the top to try to let air move, like Dalton was talking about.
Right.
And it's under the fly. And that vent would get a bunch of moisture up in it from my body heat and everything like that from the rain. And I think that a lot of what was dripping was also condensation.
Right. Yeah.
Because later despite the fact that it was raining so much, the longer I stayed in the tent, the less the dripping was an issue.
Yeah.
So I think most of my problems with that were moisture in the tent.
Gotcha.
I want to use this, and hopefully not in so much rain, just a little bit. Right. But I mean, I wasn't hunting. I was in my tent because it was such a terrible time out there. Just weather-wise.
It was, yeah. It was not exactly something you just go sit out on a log and enjoy.
I was hunting by myself in the 6-man tent. Which was nice.
Like, it was roomy.
I had my action packers in there. And it was, I looked in there that night when I set it up and was like, because usually I don't, right? They're muddy. They're wet. They got sticks on them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I looked I had them all under the vestibule, and I unzipped the tent and I looked in there and it was soaking wet in there.
Yeah.
From the rain.
Oh man.
And I was like, it's already wet in there. What's it going to matter? And I threw the action packers in the middle of and like,
nice.
Yeah.
And anyway, the price, you cannot beat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it like, oh, I'm going to buy my forever tent. Yeah, no, this isn't it.
Yeah.
That's where you go look at the Arctic Oven, or who knows? Maybe there's something about that Stone Glacier one that makes it worth that much money.
Right.
But
I'm actually on Alaska Airframe's website right now, which is the maker. I'm sorry, Airframes Alaska, and they're the manufacturer of Arctic Oven tents.
Yeah.
They're a local Alaska company, and the Arctic Oven Igloo, which is the geodesic style, kind of that igloo style tent, without the footprint and the floor saver, it's about $2,500 for the 3 to 5 person tent. It is a 3-person with a stove added and a 5-person without a stove. Plenty of room. And so for folks that are wondering about different tent designs, the reason that these Arctic Oven style tents are so highly valued and sought after for Alaska hunting and camping is that they have a condensation-free interior design. It doesn't drip. It doesn't accumulate moisture and then run down the inside of the tent.
And it insulates.
It's insulating fabric as well.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely tough, extremely durable, very heavy duty. That tent, that 5-man tent is 37 pounds.
Wow.
So, and obviously it's stove compatible. And, you can put any number of different stove options in there. And it retains heat. I've used them before.
I've slept in them.
Up in the North Country. And let me tell you what, that is some next level luxury when you can have your heat shut off and it stays warm in there for quite some time afterwards. It's like being in an old ratty cabin that has some drafts going through it. It'll hold hot air about as long as a cabin will. That's not quite well enough chinked, right?
I think it does better.
It's a lot better than a traditional style tent fabric design.
A lot of people use them for Lake Caribou around here and stuff like that.
There's a lot of guys that use them that run cold weather long trap lines where they'll even go out there for weeks at a time. And that's what they live in.
Yep.
My dad's stove, you know what my dad's stove is?
What?
It's 2, I believe it was 2 propane tanks that the tops were cut off of and welded together.
Nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's perfect, like size and like for where he hauls it around with his Argo.
Yeah.
Which is, the perfect thing to use to haul that big thing around.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a small package.
I would probably just run my little light outdoors titanium wood stove. Yeah. I think that'd be a great option.
But you have
the
that.
oven. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a little fire. Just heat that baby up and it'll stay warm for a while.
Yep.
Oh man. I can see some spending in my future at some point. I think I want one of these things.
Yeah, no, they're awesome tents. And I mean, you heard Jeff Day's review of them in his episode, the wind resistance and everything like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about
they're
that.
really well built. They're an all Alaska company. If you're looking for one of the heaviest duty tents you can possibly buy.
Well, maybe.
Probably the best.
We'll give them a nice plug.
Oh, yeah.
They're a great company.
Yeah. Probably the best for harsh Alaska conditions where weight is not an issue.
Yep.
Arctic Oven is the way to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of gear talk, a little bit of ethics talk. We're going to wrap this one up for this week's episode. And just remember, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and contact us. We have our social medias. If you search at The Northern Hunter on Facebook or Instagram, our email or the contact button on the website of thenorthernhunter.com. If you'd like to support what we're doing, definitely go in there and check out the shop page. We got some merch. We got hats, hoodies, t-shirts, all the good stuff. More designs always coming. We've got our partners page. Shopping from any of those partners really helps those companies. They're run by great people. They make great products. It also really helps us continue what we're doing and grow. And again, the best way you can help us spread the word is by subscribing to the show, sharing it with your friends, leaving us a review. All of that helps us reach as many people as possible that can use this kind of information. So definitely have a great weekend. Hopefully everybody's out hunting. And until Monday, get out there, get after it, and good luck. We'll see you there.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to stealthyhunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.